Imagine, right, you're sitting in the emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
You literally have a piece of a chicken wing bone lodged in your throat.
Yeah.
You are staring right at the triage nurse.
Okay, sounds awful.
But you actively refuse to officially check in until you finish the final hole of your virtual reality golf tournament.
Oh, man. I mean, that's a whole other level.
Right. Welcome to the deep dive,
Yeah.
everyone. Because the dedication here is just, it's terrifying, honestly. The greens are brutal, and the mind games are just, they're already starting before the headsets even power on.
Yeah, that kind of medical delay, I guess you'd call it. It sounds completely insane to anyone outside this specific competitive bubble. But, when you're locked into a bracket, the stakes just feel absolutely life or death.
Totally. So we're breaking down the absolute chaos of the latest Walkabout Weekly League digests today.
Oh, yeah?
We're pulling apart the tournament leaderboards, tracking all these wild upsets, and really dissecting the most ruthless, unguarded chatter pulled straight from the virtual fairways.
And I gotta say, the psychological pressure this week is generating some truly bizarre behavior. I mean, we are seeing seasoned veterans completely unravel over, basic geometry.
It's wild. So whether you are lacing up your virtual golf shoes, to prep for your own next match, or you're just sitting back fascinated by the sheer drama of high-stakes mini golf, you are in the perfect place.
Exactly. Glad you're with us.
Because today, we're dedicating this entire discussion to a concept that has been literally destroying brackets all week.
Okay.
We're talking about the great equalizer.
Right. The psychological warfare of course selection. I mean, it basically dictates everything.
Yeah. We are putting a microscope on the tension between easy courses and hard courses. We're going to track the exact mechanism of how a pre-match veto, physically alters a player's grip on their controller, and how course difficulty is tilting the playing field to decide our champions.
And this league proves that the actual physical swing of the putter is really just, it's the very last step in a much longer, much more complicated chain of events, The real battle is fought in the lobby menus. It's fought in the Discord chats.
Totally. So let's pull up the leaderboard and look at who is actually surviving this mental gauntlet. And the first name that jumps out, like the entity casting this massive shadow over the entire league right now, is the Wicked Mamas. I mean, can anyone actually stop them?
Honestly, looking at the trajectory of their current data, the probability is approaching zero.
Approaching zero. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a wall.
Well, we need to dissect the USA and Canada knockout doubles. Because this tournament officially concluded on April 23rd, right? And the Wicked Mamas didn't just secure a victory. They executed this complete systemic dismantling of the entire field.
They really did. They turned a highly volatile game of, physics and unpredictable angles into a predictable math equation.
Right.
They basically left everyone else fighting this desperate battle for second place.
I told the granular breakdown of their final showdown, so they were matched up against New York Groove.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And calling it a clinic almost feels like an understatement. It was just a terrifying display of mechanical putting precision, like a heavyweight boxer just clearing out the division.
It's so true.
Right.
Let's look at the mechanics of why that precision is so rare, though. Because in a high-stakes finals match, your body betrays you.
Right, the adrenaline.
Exactly. Adrenaline floods your system. And the first thing that goes is your micromotor control. Your tempo inherently speeds up.
You get twitchy.
Right. You grip the plastic of your VR controller just a fraction of an inch tighter, and that tension travels right up your forearm, it locks your shoulder, and suddenly a smooth pendulum swing turns into this rigid, jerky push.
Yes.
But the Wicked Mamas somehow bypass human biology. It's like their telemetry data suggests their swing speed and grip pressure just remain perfectly flat, regardless of the score.
I mean, playing against them has to feel like sitting across a chessboard from a supercomputer.
Totally.
The intimidation isn't that they hitting the ball harder or find these magical, secret shortcuts.
No, not at all.
The intimidation comes from the realization that they have already calculated the next 5 holes, and they are literally just waiting for you to make a microscopic, unforced error. You step onto hole 1, and you already feel like you're drowning.
That supercomputer analogy gets right to the core of it, I think. Because when you see the Wicked Mamas on your side of the bracket, your entire risk profile changes.
Yes. You panic.
You abandon your practiced, consistent shots. You start attempting these heroic, low-probability bounces off jagged rocks because you falsely believe that absolute perfection is the only way to keep pace.
Yet attempting low-probability heroism is exactly what causes the catastrophic bogeys.
Yeah.
Just spiral.
Right. They force you to defeat yourself before they even have to lift their putters.
It's brilliant.
It is. But the Wicked Mamas were not the only ones engineering that kind of systemic collapse this week. We definitely have to look across the pond at the European theater.
Oh, man. The Europe-only knockout doubles.
It was an absolute meat grinder.
It really was. I'm looking at the bracket progression here, and Masterstroke put together a run that just defies statistical probability.
Oh, completely.
First, they systematically dismantled Wicked machines, and immediately after that, they delivered a completely decisive blow to BB Blame Barca.
Which is wild because knocking out two foundational pillars of the European community back-to-back requires an immense cognitive load.
Yeah, VR is exhausting.
Right. Virtual reality drains your eyes and your spatial awareness. Sustaining that exact level of focus for two consecutive high-stakes matches is just an endurance feat.
And the endurance doesn't even stop there, because Love at First Putt managed to secure an incredibly hard-fought, grueling victory over Pancakes. Like, the European skill floor hasn't just been raised, it has been fundamentally rebuilt from the ground up.
Yeah, the density of talent over there is creating a real bottleneck. I mean, let's look at the sheer volume of data we're processing here. The league bots logged a staggering 104 completed matches across 4 different tournaments.
104 high-stakes matchups, the server logistics alone for that are incredible.
Honestly, yeah.
But here is the bizarre twist hiding in that data set. Only a fraction of those matches actually took place during this current reporting window.
This is the crazy part.
Right. The vast majority of these 104 matches, these are epic, brutal battles from all the way back in March that are only just now being officially verified and processed by the league bots.
We are essentially watching historical echoes hit the live feed.
It's like time travel. Butternutter sinking Stormbow. Shaq and Jazz beating Side 1 versus Side 2. These are legendary showdowns that the players themselves experienced, like, weeks ago.
And this introduces one of the most fascinating psychological anomalies in competitive gaming. Let's call it phantom momentum.
Ooh, I like that term. Phantom momentum.
Yeah. Imagine your own brain chemistry for a second. You win a massive match in March, right? Your brain releases a surge of dopamine. You feel victorious.
You're on top of the world.
Exactly. But then April hits, you hit a slump, maybe you lose a few casual matches, and your confidence dips. Your grip gets tight again.
You start doubting your swing.
Yes, and then suddenly it's May. The official digest drops. Your phone lights up with all these notifications. Everyone in the Discord is dissecting your brilliant March victory as if it happened 10 minutes ago.
Oh, wow. So you just relive it.
You get a secondary, completely unearned dopamine spike. You read the praise, your posture physically changes, and you swagger into your live May lobby feeling absolutely untouchable.
That is so cool.
Your muscles relax, your pendulum swings, smooths out. You are riding a wave of momentum generated by an event that is literally 30 days old.
It's basically a psychological performance enhancer delivered on a massive tape delay.
Exactly. But that phantom momentum is incredibly fragile. I mean, winning on your favorite course with a relaxed grip and a head full of delayed dopamine is a great feeling.
Sure.
But what happens when that comfort is violently ripped away from you, like an hour before the match?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
You were talking about the veto system.
The veto is the ultimate act of psychological sabotage.
It really is. We have to analyze the pre-match drama that unfolded this week. I was reading through the transcripts of the chat logs leading up to the Tourist Trap Hard and Holiday Hideaway Hard matchups.
And the anxiety bleeding through the text is just visceral.
Oh, it's palpable. Put yourself in the shoes of a competitor. You know you have a match on Friday. You spend Monday through Thursday grinding a specific course.
Hours and hours.
Right. You memorize the texture of the greens. You learn the exact coefficient of friction on a specific patch of virtual sand. You know precisely how many millimeters to pull your controller back to hit the ball off a tiny, jagged pixel of a rock to secure a hole-in-one.
You are dialed in.
You are completely locked in. And then 60 minutes before tee time, your opponent clicks a button and vetoes your course.
Boom. Done. With a single keystroke, 40 hours of muscle memory just becomes a liability.
All that spatial data you loaded into your brain is instantly irrelevant.
And you can really see how the players process this trauma, because during the build-up to that tourist trap match, they weren't even talking about strategy. They were talking about superstition.
Yes.
They were deeply focused on what they call the veto curse.
It's like the idea of digital karma.
Yes. It's this deeply ingrained belief that if you act aggressively and veto a course, the game's random number generator, the algorithm that picks the replacement course, will somehow sense your malice and punish you by dealing you an even worse environment.
It's so funny. One player explicitly stated, "I hate vetoing because I always get a worse one whenever I do."
I mean, from a purely mathematical standpoint, the random number generator has no memory.
Right. It's code.
It has no conscience. But in a game decided by fractions of a degree, human superstition becomes a physical variable. If you truly believe the algorithm is punishing you, your confidence shatters. You approach the first tee expecting a bad bounce.
And that paranoia bleeds right into real-world technological chaos.
Wow.
I mean, look at what happened during the Holiday Hideaway map.
Oh, that was a disaster.
A veto was issued. The system randomly generated Holiday Hideaway Hard as the replacement, and the lobby system completely fractured.
It's broke down.
Players were popping in and out of existence, avatars were glitching. They ended up loaded into the lobby in the completely wrong turn order. One player had to completely restart their headset, drop out, and manually rejoin just to force the server to recognize the correct sequence of play.
Just consider the cognitive toll of that troubleshooting.
Right.
You spend your final 5 minutes before a championship match acting as an IT support technician instead of visualizing your putting line. Your heart rate is elevated. You are frustrated by the user interface.
You're just annoyed. And then the virtual world finally loads, the dust settles, and you find yourself standing on the first tee of Tour's Trap Hard.
A course designed specifically to break your spirit.
Seriously. Let's do a deep dive into the environmental hazards of this specific map. Like, why does Tourist Trap Hard elicit such a universal groan from the entire competitive community?
It fundamentally attacks how the human brain processes spatial memory in virtual reality. The primary hazard isn't even the geometry, it is the lighting engine. You are putting in pitch darkness.
Yeah, the players were cursing the environment instantly. One quote I saw was, "Damn jagged rocks. Can't see them, though. It's so dark."
Well, when you play VR mini golf, your brain naturally relies on visual landmarks to calculate distance and force.
Subconsciously, right.
Exactly. You subconsciously note a shadow or a brightly lit piece of turf to gauge exactly how hard to swing. On Tourist Trap Hard, those landmarks are just swallowed by the blackness. The environment is aggressively hostile.
Take that a step further, though. The developers actually updated this course recently to make it even more disorienting.
Oh, the Tiki Torch removal update.
Yes, the tiki torches. If you played this course like 6 months ago, there were tiki torches scattered everywhere. They cast these beautiful, warm, flickering pools of orange light that players actively used as aiming reticles.
It was crucial.
And the developers pushed a patch that ripped almost all of them out.
Yeah.
They tweaked the ambient moonlight to make the course technically lighter overall, but they destroyed the specific localized reference points players relied on.
They left exactly one Tiki Torch on the entire back nine.
One.
And the community quickly realized the only reason that single torch survived the purge was because it is a mandatory interactive clue for the Hidden Fox Hunt minigame.
That is an act of subtle, brilliant cruelty by the level designers.
Oh, absolutely.
You veto a course, you suffer the IT chaos of the lobby reboot, you finally load in, and you realize the developers have fundamentally altered the topography of your spatial memory since the last time you practiced.
Desperation sets in immediately. And when high-level competitors feel desperate, they start looking for exploits to bypass the intended mechanics of the simulation.
Which brings us to one of the most legendary controversies in the history of the league, honestly. The infamous pool cue ban.
Ah, yes. The era of floor putting.
Right. For those who weren't around in the early days, you really have to understand how players were manipulating the hardware. Because VR headsets use inside-out tracking. They establish a grid on your living room floor.
The guardian boundary.
Right.
Yeah.
And players figured out that if they manually drew their boundary lines incorrectly, or physically laid down on the carpet and pushed their headset beneath the rendered terrain, they could basically break the physics engine.
They would assume a literal billiard stance on their living room rug.
Yes. They would grip the single VR controller with both hands, slide it along the floor like a pool cue, and strike the virtual ball. And they were sinking impossible 30-foot putts with dead center accuracy over and over again.
It's crazy. Let's break down the biomechanics of why that exploit was so devastatingly effective. Because the game's physics engine is coded to expect a human shoulder joint. It expects rotation. A traditional golf swing is a pendulum arc. That arc naturally introduces multiple points of failure. Your wrist might hinge, your shoulder might dip, the club face might open by half a degree at the exact moment of impact.
So many variables.
Yeah.
But the pool cue stance just deletes all of those rotational variables.
Exactly. You eliminate the y-axis and x-axis rotation entirely. You turn a complex, multi-joint rotational movement into a pure linear z-axis strike. It is practically a machine-to-machine transfer of data. You aim the line, you push forward, and the ball travels perfectly straight every single time.
It was so effective that the tournament organizers literally had to draft emergency legislation. They explicitly banned this stance. You were legally required to swing the virtual putter like a golf club, not a snooker cue.
But the shadow of that exploit still influences how people play today. I mean, it opened up a massive ongoing debate about the biomechanical advantages of your physical setup in the real world.
Right, the physical reality bleeding into the virtual simulation. Like during the Holiday Hideaway match, players were deep in a debate about the advantages of playing seated in a swivel chair versus standing up.
Yeah, because if you sit down in a chair, you fundamentally alter your physical pivot point. Your legs and hips are locked out of the kinetic chain.
Yeah.
You are forced to bring the controller across your body and basically use a backhand aiming technique.
And one of the competitors was vehemently arguing that this seated backhand technique is basically a massive cheat code for aiming straight.
Oh, I've heard that.
Yeah, because when you stand up and swing from the shoulders, your wrist naturally wants to roll over as you follow through. That roll sends the ball veering off to the left.
Well, the seated position restricts that promation. Your forearm is locked right against your torso. It acts as a physical brace.
You do sacrifice the explosive power generated by your legs and hips, but on a putting green, you rarely need explosive power anyway. You just need microscopic precision.
And the other variable is the sheer physical dimensions of your real-world room. The Guardian system limits your follow-through.
Right. We heard a player on Holiday Hideaway actively complaining that he was leaving his putts short because he was playing inside what he called a tiny house.
A tiny house,
He physically could not take a full backswing because his brain knew that if he pulled his arm back another 2 inches, he was going to smash his plastic controller into his real-world drywall.
Your brain prioritizes protecting your hand over winning the virtual point.
Subconscious survival instinct.
Right. It forces you to decelerate right before impact. That is a massive, unquantifiable variable in every single match.
So let's look at the psychological landscape we have built up so far. Players are exhausted by the Vetoes system.
Yep.
They are terrified of the dark lighting engines and jagged rocks of the hard courses. They are constantly battling their own physical living room dimensions. Given all of that trauma, the logical assumption for you, the listener, would be that loading into an easy course is a massive sigh of relief.
It sounds like a vacation.
But it is the ultimate trap. Are the easy courses actually the most brutal, nerve-shredding test of a competitor's sanity?
In a high-stakes tournament bracket, unquestionably, they are psychological death traps.
Let's look at the transcripts from the Atlantis Easy and Venice Easy matchups. We have a highly ranked player, Carter. And Carter explicitly goes on the record stating that he absolutely despises easy courses.
Hates them.
He claims he bleeds points on them. He actually pitched the idea of implementing a specific veto option in the round-robin format solely so he could avoid the beginner-friendly tracks.
I mean, to a casual player, that sounds like madness. Why would a professional fear a flat, brightly lit green with no obstacles? But this is exactly the paradox of what we call the great equalizer.
Explain the mechanics of the great equalizer for us. Like, why is a flat grain so terrifying?
It all comes down to the baseline expectation of performance. When you load into tourist trap hard, mistakes are a mathematical certainty.
You're going to mess up.
Right. The environment is actively hostile. You are going to misjudge a bounce off a jagged rock. You will take a bogey, but your opponent is also going to take a bogey. The match becomes this gritty, ugly game of damage limitation. You are really just trying to survive the 18 holes.
It's a war of attrition.
Precisely. But when you load into Atlantis Easy, the geometry of the course changes the psychological baseline entirely. The greens are perfectly flat. The angles of the banking walls are simple, 45-degree or 90-degree deflections.
With basic math.
Yeah. So the baseline expectation for a professional player isn't just surviving, It is absolute unbroken perfection. You are expected to hit a birdie or a hole-in-one on every single hole.
Which means your margin for error doesn't just shrink, it completely evaporates.
If you make a single mistake on hole 3, your entire tournament run might be over. Because your opponent, who is also playing on an easy course, is simply not going to make a mistake to let you catch back up.
But hold on, let me push back on the physics of this just a bit. If the angles are fundamentally simpler and the greens are flat, why is anyone making a mistake in the first place? These are players who spend 40 hours a week calculating trajectory. Shouldn't they just lock in, execute the simple geometry, and shoot a perfect -18 aggregate score every single time?
If they're algorithms, yes, but they are human beings subjected to pressure and the microscopic quirks of the game's physics engine. I mean, look closely at the Atlantis match transcript. Look at the disaster on the starfish hole.
Oh, the infamous starfish.
Right. To the naked eye, the starfish hole is a simple bank shot. But you have to consider the polygon mesh of the 3D models. The starfish isn't a flat, concrete wall. It is a curved, organic shape rendered with thousands of tiny polygons.
Meaning the deflection vector actually changes depending on the exact millimeter you strike it.
Exactly. If you hit the arm of the starfish with 10% swing power, it catches a specific polygon and rolls smoothly toward the cup. If your adrenaline spikes and you hit it with 11% swing power, the ball compresses differently, catches a micro edge of a completely different polygon face, and rockets off at an 80-degree angle straight into a sand trap.
And we heard the exact moment that micro miscalculation happened. The audio transcript captures the absolute despair in the player's voice.
This is brutal.
They took the shot, watched the ball kick out the wrong way, and immediately groaned, "I just stepped in a big pile of it." They didn't even need to wait for the ball to stop rolling. They instantly knew the aggregate math. They knew they were suddenly down by 3 strokes on a course where nobody drops strokes.
The psychological weight of aggregate stroke play is just suffocating. You are not playing to win a single hole. You are trying to build an insurmountable total number.
The final score of that specific Atlantis match was 41-35. A 6-stroke gap on an easy course is a catastrophic blowout. The team that was trailing by hole 9 realized they could not win through their own skill anymore. They were reduced to just desperately hoping the leaders would suffer a muscle spasm or something.
And they verbalized it. One of the players just sighed and said, "Now you're just rooting for the other team to mess up."
You become a helpless spectator inside your own virtual headset. You are just standing there, literally praying for an unforced error from someone who is currently executing flawlessly.
That helplessness creates a pressure cooker that forged some of the most legendary lore in this whole community, honestly. During that exact Atlantis match, while dealing with that suffocating pressure, the players started reminiscing about a historic tournament run by Richard, one of the veterans of the league.
Oh, the crucible moment.
Yes. Richard reached the 18th hole of a championship final. Because of the aggregate stroke play math, a birdie wouldn't tie the game. He mathematically required a hole-in-one on the final shot to secure the victory. Anything less, a lip out, a bad bounce, a two-putt, and he loses the entire season.
Imagine the biological response to that moment.
Yeah.
Your heart is pounding against your ribs. Your headset lenses are probably fogging up with sweat. You have to step up to the virtual ball, completely empty your mind of the stakes, and execute a mathematically perfect geometrical strike.
And he nailed it. He sank the hole-in-one.
Unbelievable. That is the terror of the easy course right there. It demands a level of ice-cold execution that breaks most people.
It really does. And yet, what makes this community so endlessly fascinating to me is the absurd contrast between that heart-stopping competitive pressure and the mundane reality of playing a video game in your living room.
Right.
Because right in the middle of this high-stakes, stressful Atlantis match, the game's user interface glitches out.
A player accidentally enters the wrong score on the manual lobby chalkboard.
Right. The tension is at its absolute peak. Players are sweating over every millimeter, and suddenly they have to stop and do basic data entry.
And the reaction isn't rage either. It is pure, casual, suburban chaos. The lobby just collectively shrugs, and someone casually says, "She can fix it. Just take your time. It's dead easy to fix."
Yeah.
They're fighting for their digital lives, but they also have to act as their own administrative assistants.
It really grounds the entire simulation. It reminds you that underneath the avatars, these are just folks hanging out on a Tuesday night.
Absolutely. Actually, my favorite moment of the entire week happens right as this agonizing Atlantis match finally concludes. The scores are locked in, the stress has been immense, and one of the competitors takes a deep breath, unmutes his microphone, and solemnly announces that he's going to order hot chicken wings.
Specifically from Pontillo's.
From Pontillo's.
Mhm.
He tells the entire lobby, irregardless of the outcome, I'm going to go eat some hot chicken wings.
Mm.
The duality of the VR athlete is just stunning. You survive the psychological crucible of aggregate stroke play, and your immediate reward is deep-fried poultry.
It is a vital coping mechanism. Because if the easy courses strip away your margin for error and demand perfection, we have to transition to what the hard courses do to a player.
Oh, man. The hard courses don't demand perfection. They strip away your dignity. They strip away your sanity. Let's look at the players who were thrown into the meat grinder this week.
We observed absolute, unmitigated carnage on Gardens of Babylon Hard and Sweetopia Hard.
We have to start with the Babylon match. I need to talk about Zach. Zach experienced a public systemic meltdown that was physically painful to read in the transcripts.
His spatial processing just completely collapsed.
Babylon is a course built entirely on verticality. You're putting up steep ramps, navigating suspended gardens, and trying to constantly fight gravity. Zach got trapped in the valleys. He would hit the ball up a ramp, fail to crest the hill, and watch in despair as the physics engine rolled the ball right back to his feet.
Over and over again, he was hitting the game's hard-coded stroke limit on multiple holes.
He completely lost his mechanical timing. At one point, you can literally hear his spirit break. He just sighs into the microphone, I'm just going to give him all right back here.
Right.
He knew he was trapped in a physics loop he couldn't escape.
Now, analyze how his opponents reacted, though, because in a traditional sport, if a competitor is melting down, there is usually a quiet respect or a tense silence.
Yeah, sportsmanship.
In VR mini golf, they immediately weaponized his failure.
They completely dismantled him. They didn't offer advice. They analyzed his avatar's animation and started roasting his posture.
They accused him of putting with T-Rex arms.
Do you suffer from mobility issues? Because you look like you're putting like a T-Rex. I mean, it is a devastatingly funny critique because it is biomechanically accurate to why he was failing.
It really is. Let's explain why the T-Rex posture is fatal on Babylon. To overcome the vertical inclines, you need to generate massive torque. You need a wide stance, locked elbows, and a sweeping pendulum motion from the shoulders to drive the ball up the hill.
Right.
Zach had pulled his elbows tight into his ribs, the T-Rex stance. He was trying to use short, choppy, panicked wrist flicks to push the ball.
He was applying flat green technique to a mountainous environment, and the game ruthlessly punished him for it.
But the beauty of the hard courses is that logic doesn't always dictate the outcome. You can have Zach's deeply logical, physics-based meltdown on hole 4, and then witness an absolute defiance of physics on hole 7.
Enter Art Vanderlei.
The architect of the miracle bounce.
Art steps up to the tee box on Babylon. He misreads the topography completely. He strikes the ball with entirely the wrong power vector.
Completely wrong.
The ball goes flying wildly off the intended path, careens into the jagged architectural ruins of the garden, takes a mathematically impossible double bounce off a decorative pillar, redirects 180 degrees, and drops flawlessly into the bottom of the cup.
It is a 1 in a million collision error in the physics engine.
And Art, without missing a single beat, immediately unmutes his mic and claims it was 100% intentional.
The irrational confidence is staggering.
He declares to the lobby, "Tell the world Art Vanderlei has arrived." He demands someone clip the replay video so he can post it to his OnlyFans.
Incredible.
He takes an act of pure, unadulterated, chaotic luck and instantly rebrands himself as a tactical genius.
That dichotomy basically defines the hard course experience. You are either Zach, trapped in a spiraling nightmare of T-Rex armed misery begging the physics engine for mercy, or you are Art Vanderlei, surfing a wave of pure algorithmic chaos and pretending you can see the Matrix.
There is no middle ground. And because the environments are so volatile, players become violently defensive of their specific strategies. They desperately crave predictability. I mean, look at the transcript from the Sweetopia match.
Oh, the great tunnel debate.
Exactly. Sweetopia is this candy-themed nightmare world. And one of the players is venting to his lobby about a fierce argument he got into on a community forum with a lady regarding the optimal strategy for hole 16.
So hole 16 features this massive curving enclosed tube. It is a blind shot.
Right. So the lady on the forum is violently arguing that the only way to secure a hole-in-one is her highly specific, pixel-perfect setup. It involves aiming at a microscopic blemish on a virtual gummy bear, kissing the bumper at exactly 42% power, and praying the ball deflects correctly into the tube.
It relies on high probability deflections.
But the player in the lobby rejects that completely. He argues that he has engineered a shot that fundamentally breaks the tube's physics. He advocates for the twirly tunnel trick shot.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of the twirly tunnel shot.
So instead of aiming for the center of the tube, he aims high on the curved wall of the entrance. He hits the ball with maximum power. The ball enters the tube, and because of the virtual centripetal force modeled by the game engine, the ball rides the curved wall, does a massive 360-degree loop-de-loop around the ceiling of the tunnel,
Oh.
bleeds off all its kinetic energy through friction, drops perfectly onto the flat floor of the exit, and casually rolls into the cup.
So he's bypassing the intended bouncy obstacles entirely by weaponizing gravity and centripetal force.
He literally tells his lobby, "I'm showing people shots that are consistent every time."
This debate strikes at the core philosophical divide in competitive gaming, doesn't it? Do you master the flashy, physics-breaking exploit that bypasses the course design? Or do you master the intended, boring layup that relies on basic geometry?
And that philosophical debate over laying up played out with devastating consequences live on hole 11 of that exact Sweetopia match.
Hole 11 is the ultimate risk-reward trap.
Set the scene for the listener. The scores are incredibly tight. The pressure is crushing. The aggregate score is -10 against -11. Every single stroke feels like lifting a boulder.
And a player steps up to a highly technical tee shot. They have two choices. Option A, go for the heroic, high-power bounce shot. If they hit it perfectly, they score a hole-in-one and tie the match. If they miss by a millimeter, the ball flies off the candy mountain into the abyss. They take a penalty stroke, and the match is essentially over.
High stakes. Then there's option B, which is the layup. You hit a soft, gentle tap to a flat, safe plateau. You guarantee yourself a two-stroke birdie, but you surrender the chance to tie the game immediately.
Right. So the player stares at the hole. The adrenaline is telling them to swing hard, but the fear of the abyss takes over. They choose option B. They play it safe. They take the gentle tap and secure their two strokes.
And what happens?
Their opponent immediately sinks a miraculous shot.
Brutal.
The layup mathematically eliminates the player from contention right then and there. By playing safe, they guaranteed their own defeat.
The instant the match ends, the regret is just palpable. The player unmutes and says, "So many regrets why I take my 2 on 11 instead of going for the hole-in-one."
It is the oldest dilemma in competitive sports. Do you play to win or do you play not to lose?
When you play not to lose on a hard course, the course will slowly, methodically digest you. You have to embrace the chaos and take the risks.
But embracing that chaos requires a level of tunnel vision dedication that frankly borders on clinical obsession.
Which brings us back to the hook of this entire deep dive. The most genuinely insane story I have ever read in a sports transcript. I cannot overstate the sheer physical dedication of this community.
The chicken wing incident.
We have to unpack the timeline of this medical emergency. A player is deep in the trenches of the Babylon match. He casually keys his microphone and informs the lobby that he recently had a piece of a chicken wing lodged sideways in his throat.
Not a mild tickle, a structural blockage.
A literal medical emergency.
Hmm.
He explains that he eventually had to go to the emergency room. He was admitted to the hospital. He spent 23 excruciating hours under medical supervision to have the bone extracted. But here's the critical piece of information. Before he went to the hospital,
While the bone was actively obstructing his airway,
he put on his VR headset, booted up Walkabout Mini Golf, and played his scheduled league round.
he prioritized aggregate stroke play over his own respiratory system.
He actually told the lobby, "I wanted to take my headset to the ER so I could practice in the waiting room, but my girlfriend wouldn't let me."
The dedication is terrifying.
And the most incredible part isn't even his story. It's how the rest of the lobby digests this information. In any normal social setting, there would be shock. There would be concern. Like, "Are you okay? Do you need to sit down?"
Oh, not in this league. Empathy is a vulnerability.
They immediately weaponize his near-death experience to bully a completely different player who isn't even in the room.
Because earlier in the week, a different competitor had forfeited their match because they contracted conjunctivitis. Pink eye.
And the lobby uses the chicken wing guy to absolutely roast the pink eye guy. One player laughs and says, "You just don't have the heart. This guy is playing with a chicken bone lodged in his throat, choking on a wing, and you quit a match because your eye is a little itchy."
Another player chimes in, well, the pink eye guy knows how to chew his food properly so he doesn't wind up in a hospital nightmare. The banter is ruthlessly efficient.
It is a pure Darwinian survival of the fittest ecosystem. You show weakness, and the pack tears you apart. Which begs the question, who actually has the cardiovascular stamina to survive an entire season of this?
Let's pull back and look at the macro-level statistics for the Walkabout Weekly League Season 1, because it is a grueling marathon. The bots resolved 49 separate matches in this reporting window alone.
49 matches. The standings are fluctuating wildly. It is pure chaos.
But through that chaos, a few apex predators are emerging. You have to look at the telemetry for Chipity.
Chipity is on a scorched earth campaign right now.
An absolute tier. They didn't just win, they dismantled highly respected opponents. They took down Elwood, they took down Sheenamore, and they put Matt Pew Pew firmly in their place, securing 3 massive, high-pressure victories in a single reporting window requires immense emotional regulation.
They're climbing the ranks at a terrifying speed. And over in the cup bracket, the violence is just as pronounced. We have to highlight the player stroke limit reached.
Arguably the most intimidating psychological handle in the game.
It's an incredible name. It implies they're going to push you until the physics engine physically stops you from swinging. And they lived up to that moniker by showing Richard UK the exit. They knocked him right out of the cup contention.
But, as we analyze these cutthroat leaderboards and this ruthless Darwinian banter, we have to address the core paradox of this community. The putting is vicious, the stakes are immense, but a casual conversational banter is actually the structural glue that prevents these players from having a complete nervous breakdown.
It is the release valve.
Yeah.
We just talked about the brutal roasting over the pink eye. But if you read further into the Venice match transcripts, you see something entirely different. Right in the middle of a tense round robin, where every single stroke could dictate their playoff seeding, the players are having the most relaxed, deeply nerdy, mundane conversation imaginable.
We have to talk about Kyler's monologue.
Kyler is standing on the green of Venice Easy. The pressure is immense. And instead of talking about angles or wind speed, he is casually giving a master class on solo indie game development.
He is breaking down the architecture of different game engines. He is pitching his concept for a cozy pixel art farming simulator.
And the other players chime in, completely ignoring the match, to debate the hardware merits of the Steam Deck versus setting up a retro emulator on a mobile phone with a Bluetooth gamepad for long airplane flights.
I use emulators for old school Sega games, one player casually remarks, while simultaneously lining up a 20-foot putt that could basically end his opponent's season.
They start swapping recommendations for 1990s point-and-click adventure games like Broken Sword.
And remember, this is not happening in a pre-game lobby menu while they wait for the server to load. This conversation is occurring in real time while avatars are physically bending over putters, calculating geometry.
The exact same phenomenon occurred during the brutal Babylon match. Zach is having his T-Rex arm meltdown, Art Vanderlei is screaming about his OnlyFans, and amidst that chaos, 2 other players just start reviewing the Netflix reality show $1 Million Secret.
They are analytically breaking down the mechanics of a TV show where contestants have to identify a secret millionaire based on how awkwardly they high-five people.
Another player pivots the conversation to the Disney Plus release schedule. I still need to start the new Marvel, they brought Daredevil back.
So, as an observer, you have to ask, why is this happening? Why is the brain of a virtual athlete prioritizing a conversation about a Charlie Cox superhero show during the final holes of a championship bracket?
It has to be an involuntary defense mechanism.
It is a psychological grounding technique. Think back to everything we have discussed today. The crushing expectation of perfection on the easy courses, the terrifying, jagged unpredictability of the hard courses.
The veto curses.
Exactly. The phantom momentum, the veto curses, the sheer physical exhaustion of swinging a plastic controller for hours. If you allow your conscious mind to focus entirely on those stakes 100% of the time, your nervous system will redline. You will crack.
You will become Zach. You will tense up, your elbows will lock into your ribs, and you will start hacking at the ball with P-Rex arms because your brain has perceived a threat and gone into a full fight-or-flight mode.
To prevent that physical lockup, you have to bleed off the cognitive tension somehow. Engaging in a deeply nerdy, highly structured conversation about pixel art or game engines occupies the anxious, conscious part of your brain. It distracts the anxiety.
It allows your subconscious muscle memory, the 40 hours of practice you put in on Monday, to take over and actually execute the physical putt.
You are tricking your own brain. You are telling your nervous system, look, we are just hanging out in a virtual living room with some friends talking about Sega Genesis, while your hands quietly execute a mathematically perfect 30-foot strike.
It is a beautiful contradictory ecosystem. The intense, hyper-competitive, stat-heavy reality of the bracket is really only made bearable by the genuine, mundane camaraderie of the players.
It is the only way to survive the great equalizer.
What an absolutely insane week of data to process. We watched the Wicked Mamas assert a terrifying supercomputer-level dominance over the knockout doubles.
We analyzed how a simple pre-match veto can destroy spatial memory and induce literal UI chaos in the server lobbies.
We shattered the illusion of the easy course, realizing that flat greens actually demand a suffocating, terrifying level of flawless execution.
We watched the hard courses break players like Zach while simultaneously rewarding the irrational, chaotic confidence of Art Vanderlei.
And we learned that absolutely nothing, not a stroke limit, not a broken physics engine, and certainly not a piece of deep-fried chicken lodged in a respiratory tract, can extinguish the competitive fire of a true walkabout athlete.
They balance an impossibly high mechanical skill ceiling with the relaxed, chatty vibe of a Sunday afternoon barbecue. There is no other competitive space quite like it.
There really isn't. So, as you wrap up your own practice sessions or as you sit back and watch the leaderboards update, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. We have spent this entire deep dive analyzing the duality of course selection, the great equalizer.
The paradox of difficulty.
Right. If an easy course like Atlantis is the ultimate psychological test of flawless, unbroken, microscopic perfection,
And a hard course like Tourist Trap or Babylon is the ultimate test of gritty, desperate, chaotic survival.
which environment actually crowns the better golfer? Is true mastery defined by never making a mistake in a perfect environment? Or is it defined by how brilliantly you can recover from a disaster in the dark? Think about that the next time you are standing on a virtual tee box, staring down a jagged rock, desperately hoping the karma of the veto doesn't ruin your entire week. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time on the fairways.